So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on Power Apps in Microsoft 365. My name is Libby, and I'm here to just give you a quick introduction and background to Alberon, just to give everybody a bit of a better understanding of what we do. So Alberon was started around 17 years ago in Oxford, primarily specialising in web application development, SharePoint development, Power BI reporting and analytics, and bespoke software development. Now, more specifically, some of the services include software development, web design and development, managed web hosting, and software and web support and training. We actually have a series of really comprehensive training courses that we should be launching in the near future, which will be a lot more in-depth and teach you how to manage and keep up to date with your own online environments. And more recently, we've been expanding our SharePoint services, where we can help with development, design, consultancy, and, like I just mentioned, training. So some of the SharePoint services we offer include helping with the planning, design, and development of sites, migrating and updating services, and providing ongoing support, including training. The reason we want to support more organizations with SharePoint is because it already comes as part of the Microsoft 365 subscription. So it's really accessible to those who already use Microsoft services. And we often find that a lot of businesses don't really use SharePoint to its full potential. So we can really help organizations and individuals to maximize the benefits of the Microsoft suite of applications. And SharePoint can be used for more efficient collaboration, document management, and control, and it can be customized to your organization, so it can handle any specific business processes that you might require. Now, we tend to find that people enjoy using SharePoint because of its built-in functionality and centralized administration. It's very customizable in nature, and the document management and collaboration features are really great. And once you're familiar with it, it really is quite easy to use. And as I mentioned previously, it's fully integrated with other Microsoft 365 apps. So it just creates a more seamless and efficient end user experience, which we find empowers users to handle processes themselves instead of having to really heavily rely on external support. So here we just have a small selection of some of our happy clients, including university colleges and charities around Oxfordshire, who've generally found that their processes have become a lot more efficient since developing their SharePoint environments. And you can read more detailed testimonials on our website. And additionally, on our website, we have a range of case studies, which you might find useful to read. These case studies identify the challenges that organizations were facing, and they detail how we at Alberon were able to help them create positive results to benefit everybody in their workforce. Some of the solutions that we've delivered include establishing an easy-to-use intranet, reforming permissions and access structures, and providing consultation and training to company staff to help them become more confident with maintaining their sites. And the results include the removal of any inconsistencies within their site structure, creating far more professional setups and more appropriate systems for information sharing and access. So with almost 17 years of experience combined with the skill and the expertise of our consultants and developers, Alberon, we're able to tailor solutions specific to the needs of your business. And additionally, we can provide business insights and analytics, as well as in-house technical support, so you can feel comfortable knowing that the needs of your organization are in safe hands. So if you're interested in any of the services that we offer, or if you'd like to know more, please do drop us an email at hello@alberon.co.uk, and we'll be happy to discuss any queries with you. I will shortly hand over to our senior consultant, James.
Okay, right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for that, Libby. As she was saying, my name's James McDowell. I'm the senior Microsoft consultant here at Alberon. And today we're going to have an overview of Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI, which are 3 applications available within Microsoft 365. We are hoping to deliver some far more in-depth sessions on this, as Libby alluded to. We do have a Power BI dashboard in a day course ready to go. We also have a hands-on Power Automate course as well. And I'm working with a Power Apps developer at the moment to try and construct a hands-on Power Apps session. Now, these are generic. However, if you would like to look at specific solutions for your organization with regards to any of these applications, we're more than happy to customize training and actually make it more relevant to you and using your own data. So we'll dive in. So the first screen, hopefully you can see. So this is Power Apps, and this application allows you to build custom business apps from scratch. You can do it from blank if you're quite proficient with this. There are templates built in, which this is one of them, which I thought would be quite a good demo. You can also generate an app straight from data sources that you may already have, including Excel spreadsheets, SharePoint lists, SQL databases, and Microsoft Dataverse, and there are a few more. And basically what this allows you to do is actually build an application that you can install on your mobile device, on your phone or tablet. So this one's actually a pre-built Microsoft one for budget and expenses. So the way the canvas is kind of split up, so on the left-hand side, you've got your different screens. So as you navigate through the application, these are the different screens you would see. In the center, obviously, is the canvas that you've got the application on, so you can actually see and customize its visuals. And then on the right-hand side is all the information related to that specific screen you're on to allow you to customize everything from sort of the look and feel, color schemes, navigation, to some coding which uses functions. So for example, on this application, we've got the budget screen, which is the screen you're looking at now. And within, when you expand that out, you've got all the different components that go up to building that screen, from text boxes, images, to the actual navigation features and the information that it's actually displaying. And as you can see, as you navigate through these, it opens up and changes the information on the right-hand side, so you can look at fonts, weights, colors, and if you go into advanced mode, you can actually see the functions that are being used and that actually make this app work. This is not something that a lot of people pick up straight away unless you're sort of familiar with coding. It's not as in-depth code-wise as applications like this used to be. It is a bit more user-friendly, but it's not quite as intuitive as maybe Power BI or Power Automate are. But it allows you to create your own applications, which you can actually have on your phone. So this one, for example, will, there are a couple of screens. This is probably going to fire up my camera. It won't, because I'm already screen sharing. But in this application, when you've got it on your phone and tablet, you can actually take a photograph of a receipt. It will scan it, record it, and then link it to other data sources that you may have within 365, or even if you've got dedicated HR and payroll systems. So this is just one example of an application you can use that's provided for you. Power Apps can also be used to create Power Forms. This can be initiated straight from a SharePoint document library or a SharePoint list. It's fully integrated. And we have used this with some of our clients where we've created smart forms with full data validation and approval processes that link straight back to a SharePoint list or document library. So within SharePoint, for those of you that looked at our document management webinars, when you create a new item within a document library or a SharePoint list, rather than opening up the default built-in editor in SharePoint, you can actually link it to Power Apps, so you can have your own custom forms pop up where you can do an awful lot more functionality. So yeah, this allows you to add screens, change screens. You're not restricted in the template applications to what they give you. You can add additional screens, you can add additional functionality, customize it to how your organization wants to use it. And as you can see, you can add in charts and lots of different things. And basically, you just have to walk through and see it as you would as an end user, what an end user would like to use the application for, what functions and features, and you can constantly update it. And then these apps can be published. So there is a publish option. Once you're happy with it and the application's in the state that you need it, and it's been tested, you can then make that available through, and this is a bit of a tongue twister, but there is a Power app for phone and tablet. If you download that, you will be able to see your applications in there, and then you can actually have them installed on your screen on your phone. So it'll operate just like an app that you would download from the App Store. Yeah, this is a huge subject, and like I said, we are partnering with a Power Apps developer because we would like to get people more hands-on with this and actually use their own data sources and actually build some apps and publish them themselves, or maybe even try out some of the default Microsoft ones that are built in. But if you can actually get a good understanding of the sort of coding and how you construct these things up, then obviously it opens your organization up to build its own applications and deploy them to staff, which is obviously a really useful thing for a lot of businesses to be able to do, rather than having to go out to the App Store or and get generic applications. So we will be publishing soon when these courses are available, and we will go into this in a lot more detail. I know that was a bit of a whirlwind tour, but this is such a huge application that you could spend weeks going through every feature. But if you do have questions at the end, we will try and answer them. So the next application is Power Automate. This is something I've used for a long time. It's really, really useful tool. I mean, it kind of transforms your 365 environment, particularly within SharePoint. It allows you to create automated flows that automate your business processes. It can take the pain out of manually intensive tasks that you might have. It can also get you to do a lot of clever work yourself. There are a lot of third-party connectors in this, so you're not just restricted to Microsoft 365 applications, but you can also integrate this with a whole catalog of third-party apps from DocuSign, Adobe, Google Analytics. The list goes on. So the way you construct these, so there's 5 options at the top when you come into it to create a flow. The first 3, which I'll go in a bit more detail in a minute, are basically around your online environment, so all of your online applications, including SharePoint. There's also a Power Automate desktop app, which you can install straight from here, and that allows you to create automation within your desktop environment, so within your desktop apps, File Explorer, even your web browsers. That's not as commonly used as the online versions, but it is still a really powerful tool. So if you are more geared around your desktop environment, particularly around File Explorer, and that may be something you'd want to download and have a look at in more detail. We will go through that on the Power Automate course that we are going to run. The last option is process mining. This has changed its name a few times. It's been called a few different things, but basically that allows you to evaluate and optimize your existing processes. So if you've already built flows, you can actually run this and it will actually help you enhance them and advise changes. It's really good if you're going through any kind of business change process at the moment and you're trying to streamline or make your processes more efficient. If you've managed to digitize them and get them into Power Automate, that's a really good tool to help you to optimize what you've already got. But the main 3, as I said, are designed around your online environment, so you can build cloud flows. Now, these basically, the first three is how you want your flow to be triggered to kick off this automation, what actually gets it started. And there are three options. So you can have an automated cloud flow, which looks for a particular event in your online environment. That could be anything from adding a new row in Excel, in an Excel spreadsheet, to uploading a file to a SharePoint document library, just some sort of activity that actually kicks this flow off and gets the rest of the automation to work. You've also got instant cloud flow. So if you actually want to trigger a flow yourself manually, so you choose as and when you want to do it, there are some options particularly within SharePoint and Dynamics, where you can select a particular file or particular item and tick an option that will actually start this flow off. But most commonly, you can have a manual trigger. So if you create a flow with a manual trigger and you download the Power Automate app for your smartphone or tablet, when you go into the app, there'll be an option called buttons. When you select that, any instant cloud flows that you've created that are manually triggered, those buttons will appear on your phone screen, and it's as simple as tapping that button and that flow will start, which is quite useful. The third one is scheduled, so you can create a flow that runs at a particular date or times. For example, if there's a task that you do, the same task at 9 o'clock every Monday, you could set a scheduled cloud flow so that actual task runs automatically at 9 every Monday morning. And that's a really useful option as well. So to create flows, you've got three options of creating a flow. You can start from a blank one if you're actually familiar with Power Automate and you know what you're doing, you know what you're trying to achieve. You can pick one of those options and start from a blank canvas. You can also start from a template. There are hundreds of templates built in into Power Automate, either ones that Microsoft have developed themselves or ones that have been recommended by users. And it will show you what this flow is actually going to do, and it will also show you the applications that it uses to achieve that. Bottom right hand corner, the number is actually the amount of times people have used it or the amount of individual users that have got it, so you can get a very good indication of how popular and how useful this flow is and how widely it's used. So that can give you a good indication of that. Or you can start from a connector. As I said, you can use a lot of the 365 applications built into Power Automate, but there are a big catalog of third-party ones as well. So if there's a particular application that you want to use in your automation, you can actually search for that, and then it will recommend templates based on that particular connector. So if we take a look at one, got a few test ones in here. SharePoint. So within your flows that you've created, they're listed there. It will show you all the flows that you've built for your cloud environment. You can also see a list of any desktop flows that you've created in Power Automate Desktop. And usefully, you can share flows with other people. So if you've created one that you think might be useful for a colleague or another team, or you want to collaborate with someone on a flow for testing, you can actually share it with them, and that flow will then move to the shared with me, and people or teams that you've shared it with will be able to access exactly the same flow as well to work on. So within each flow, I'll pick one. So I'll pick SharePoint Discovery. When you go into the flow, each flow's got a dashboard. It's got various information on here from what connectors are being used for that flow and the accounts they're signed on to. You've got a 28-day run history, so you can actually monitor if your flows have succeeded or failed. If your flow does fail for any reason, you will get an email notification as well to go in and investigate it. And process mining previews, we spoke before, that option from the homepage where you can go in and improve your flows. You can actually do it straight from within your flow dashboard as well. So if your flow's not taking a while to run, or it's not quite how you want it, you can select process mining and look at optimizing it based on Microsoft's recommendations. Within the run history as well, this is a really useful feature. Obviously, you can see it's only run once, this flow, and it's succeeded in the last 28 days. But if for any reason it had failed, that box would be marked failed in red. You can actually click on that actual flow run, and it will give you, it will show you exactly within the flow where it's failed. So you'll have a cross and a failure indication. You can actually expand on then, and it will tell you why it's failed, so you can go in and sort of fault diagnose it and try and rectify that. As you can see, because this one ran successfully, all the boxes are ticked green. But it's really useful if you're building a flow. Sometimes a lot of this is trial and error, and it can take you a while to try and tweak things and get it to do exactly what you want. So the ability to actually see where a flow failed and see why is really, really useful. So constructing a flow, there's two elements to this. So you've got the trigger that we spoke about, which starts the flow off, and then actions. There will only ever be one trigger, but you can have as many actions as you need to achieve the outcome that you actually want. This one's quite a basic flow. As you can see, there's only 4 elements to it. So 1 trigger and 3 actions. And what this flow is doing is I've created a form in Microsoft Forms, and it's basically collecting the responses from that form and populating it in SharePoint, and then sending an email out automatically to notify people that a new form response has come in. So this one is quite basic, but in fact, I'll go into edit mode. So the trigger for this form, when it loads up, is I've created a SharePoint discovery form. So that's the trigger. Whenever anyone fills out that form and submits it, this flow will start to run. The second action is to gather the responses from that submission. So each submission has a unique ID number, so it can recognize individual responses. So it's grabbing that information from that unique submission. It's then adding it to a SharePoint list. So we've got a record of it in SharePoint. This is basically all the SharePoint columns correspond to the questions that are on the form. So for each column within the SharePoint list, you can add an answer from the form. And the way that's done is through what's called dynamic content. So as you add subsequent actions, you can actually grab information from any previous actions. So from that action there, get response details, where it's grabbed the information from the form. That's now available to add in. So you've got those dynamic content, so you're not having to type anything in manually, so it can actually grab stuff from previous processes. And that's really useful if you build more complex flows that have multiple actions. You can actually look back and get the information you need. You've also got the option to put expressions in with functions similar to what we saw in Power Apps. And there's various built-in ones there, but if you're familiar with functions and you've used them before, you can input your own and add that in. So for example, if you're creating and using a Power Automate flow to create a new file, you could actually rename that file with today's date, for example. That's just one example of something you could possibly do. And the last action on this is to send an email notification to myself and a few of my colleagues to let us know that we've had a new form submission. So as you can see, our email addresses are set in there. You can add the subject. The body of the email in this case actually grabs two pieces of information from the SharePoint action, which is title, which is actually, as you can see there, the company name, and then the point of contact. So we would automatically get an email saying new discovery, SharePoint discovery submission, and we'd have the name of the company and the point of contact. I've also added in a hyperlink that takes us straight through to that SharePoint list, so then we can go and look in more detail. So this is just an example of a relatively simple flow that actually connects Microsoft Forms, SharePoint, and Outlook. And that's just an example of something you could do. There's a huge range of flows, and I've seen incredibly complex ones. But building them up is a bit like the analogy I'd use is like formulas in Excel. So you've got individual elements of formulas like if statements and and statements, but when you become more proficient with it, you can nest them together and actually create more and more complex formulas in Excel. And the principle's the same in Power Automate. You can start from basic actions, and then actually as you get more confident or you need it to do more complex things, you can add more and more actions and get it to do more and more in one go. A couple of tips on this. We've just done a how-to guide actually on this. When you add an action, it will actually have a default name, which will just say what the action or the trigger is actually doing. So this is one of them, get response details. It's quite generic. If you're creating flows, quite often, particularly if they're really complex, you'll understand what you're trying to do, and you'll understand why you've done certain things. But if you ever have to share this with your team or other colleagues, they may not necessarily follow your thought path. So you've actually got the option to rename triggers and actions and give it a more friendly name. And that's a really useful thing to do, because if someone else is coming in to look at this for the first time and trying to understand what you've done, to actually give it a proper friendly name and actually an indication of what you're trying to achieve can be really useful. You've also got the option from settings within the trigger action settings to add notes and comments. So if you needed to give any kind of commentary about why you've done it this way, or if part of this flow needs improving, you can actually add comments and notes within each action or trigger to actually guide other people if you're trying to make improvements, or to explain why you were trying to do things a certain way. And that's really, really useful. Well, I've had instances in the past where people have left an organization and someone else has taken over their Power Automate flows, and it's taken them weeks, months, long time to try and reverse engineer what these people were trying to do. So adding some commentary and some notes is a really useful thing to do. So that's an overview of Power Automate. This can save you an awful lot of time. I'm sure most of you can think of manual processes that you have and things you have to do, tasks all the time. So actually, to get the computer to do the work for you and start creating some automation in your daily life can save you a huge amount of time. And it actually makes 365 a more dynamic environment, particularly around SharePoint, to build the automation. All these applications, Power Automate, Power Apps, Power BI, are fully integrated in SharePoint. So you can actually initiate some of this stuff directly from your document libraries or your SharePoint pages. Okay, so the last one I'm going to move on to is Power BI. Now, Power BI allows you to create, as you can see, dynamic, interactive reports and dashboards. Every organization generates or collects data. Some organizations generate vast amounts of data, but it's all very well collecting data, but you need to do something with it. So you've either got to use that data to inform your internal decision making, or to highlight stuff to your customers, or maybe provide reports to auditors or creditors, and actually use this information to make decisions, improve processes, improve the way you run your business. And Power BI gives you a really good option of doing that. Now, Power BI has a desktop app, and the online version is called Power BI Service, which is what we're looking at now. And essentially, the way you construct from scratch to get something like this, you have to take your data sources. Now, Power BI can grab data from quite a large range of data sources, everything from SharePoint lists, Excel spreadsheets, to Dynamics, SQL databases. There's a huge amount of data options in there. But what it likes is very simple data, and essentially a single version of the truth. And what I mean by that is very clearly defined column headings with just rows and rows of data. Within Power BI Desktop, that is the preferred way of constructing, the preferred application for actually manipulating your data. Once you've imported your data in, there's a huge amount of options in Power BI Desktop to transform your data, to get it in the right format. For example, if you had a column with currencies in it, you can actually set the format of that column to currency so that Power BI recognizes it as that. There's a huge amount of different data options. You can have multiple data sources, so you're not limited to say, I can only build a dashboard off one spreadsheet. you could have 3 or 4 data sources feeding one report, which could be a spreadsheet, a CSV file, SharePoint list, and some Google Analytics. So you can actually mix and match multiple data sources, which is a really useful option. You can remove data that's not relevant, so you can do a proper cleanup job in Power BI Desktop. And on our hands-on training session, we will go into that in quite a lot of detail and actually either use your own data if that's how you'd like to be taught, or we can use sample data from Microsoft and teach you the tips and tricks to get that data into a format that Power BI can really make use of. Once your data's in the state that you want it, and you've formatted it exactly how it needs to be, you can then begin constructing a dashboard. Now, this is the sample dashboard from the course that we can run using sample data from Microsoft. And the screen is actually split into 4 areas. So I'll actually go back to front, so I'll go right to left. On the very right-hand side is the data. So this is the data that you've imported into Power BI. As you can see here, I've got 5 data sources. These are a mixture of CSV files and Excel spreadsheets, but they've all been uploaded, formatted, and ready to go. The next pane is visualization. So these are the different components that you're going to add onto your canvas. So you've got a whole catalog of charts, graphs, tables, maps, lots and lots of different ways of visualizing. There's also a catalog built into this, so if you don't see a visualization that you want, you can go in and actually add search by category, and they've got topics from sort of project management, finance, so you can actually go and look for an appropriate visualization and add it into the report that you're trying to build. Also within the visualization pane, you can select which data sources are used for each visualization. So example, if we select the sum of revenue visualization we've got on the bottom, it'll actually show you with green ticks which data sources are being used, and you can see on here what data we've drag and dropped for the x-axis, and you can look at the y-axis as well, and the line. So you can, this is where you add in your data sources for each visual. You've also got the option to change the text, fonts, the look and feel of each visual. So there's a lot of options in here to actually get the dashboard and the individual visualizations how you want it. The next column is filters, so you can filter the data. So for example, if you've got date information and you're only interested in seeing data from 2022, you don't want to see anything else, you can actually put that filter on. There's an option to filter on a specific visualization, or you can apply a filter to a whole page, or you can apply a filter to an entire report. This is obviously one report, which, as you can see from the tab, is the manufacturer report. You can add additional tabs, so you can have multiple pages within a report, similar to having multiple tabs within Excel. And then the last section, the biggest one, is actually the canvas itself, where you construct this. So from a new, in fact, if I show you, if we went to a new page, this is what you'd see to start with, just completely blank. But then as you add in visualizations and build it up, you can, with time, get something like this, which is fully interactive, and with data you can drill down. Now, this is, like I said, sample data from Microsoft about manufacturing. It's based on sales of manufacturing products in various different countries, but it's got drill down built in. We've actually, the way the data has been constructed allows you to drill down, which I'll show you now. So for example, if we only wanted to see from this pie chart, Australia is highlighted as light blue. If you only wanted to see information about Australia, you can just click on that and it will filter the rest of the dashboard to just the data for Australia. As you can see, that chart's now changed to all the different provinces, and all the other charts have been filtered. So it's fully interactive, and allows people coming in to actually narrow the information down to what they want, and see stuff that's specific to them. So drill down is really useful, and we will teach you how to do that on the course. Now, once you've got your dashboard in a reasonable state in Power BI desktop, you can actually publish it, which is what's happened to this one. When you publish it, it actually puts it up into the online version of Power BI, which we're looking at now, Power BI Service. You still retain some of the options in Power BI Service to manipulate the data. It's not quite as in-depth as Power BI Desktop, but you still have some edit functions. But what Power BI Service allows you to do is then publish your dashboards and reports, whether that's embedding them in SharePoint. Power BI is an approved web part in SharePoint, or you can even publish them on websites. So if you wanted to bring a report for your customers, for example, you can actually deploy dashboards straight to websites, and you can also publish them as an app as well. So this is basically getting your data, visualizing it, and then putting it out there so people can actually make use of it. And that's essentially the ethos of Power BI. Like I said, this is another huge subject, and I would encourage you to get in touch with us about the dashboard in a day. And as I said, we're more than happy to use your own data and customize a course specifically for you if that's something you're interested in. I know this has been a bit of a whirlwind. These are 3 really big applications. They could be webinars on their own, and those webinars could last a month. But like I said, hopefully if it's given you a bit of an insight, a bit of a view of it, and if it's something you're interested in, if it's something you're using now but you want to use it, want to learn a bit more, or if you've never used it before and it's something you think your organization might benefit from, then more than happy for you to get in touch, and we'll see if we can help you.
Great, thank you. Now, I think that brings us nicely to a close. The webinar recording will be available shortly, and we'll share that with you on our socials. And in the meantime, if anybody has any other questions, or if you'd like to know a little bit more from James or about Alberon in general, then please do drop us an email at hello@alberon.co.uk, and we'll be happy to discuss any queries with you. Thank you very much, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your days. Bye.
Thanks, Nikki.